Also, the United States government has officially flown undocumented migrants over to Guantanamo Bay for the first time ever, specifically for being undocumented migrants. Okay. And not because they're terrorists or whatever. Even then, that, that is also not, that is also ridiculous. Like, I'm telling you right now, the American government is absolutely going to come after people for the lightest shit. Yeah. Trump is going to hold a press conference with Prime Minister Netanyahu today. He's already talked about how, the Gaza situation is just not working, and he wants to do mass ethnic transfer, which is obviously genocide.
Yeah, I would like to see Jordan. I'd like to see Egypt take some look. The Gaza thing has not worked. It's never worked. And I feel very differently about Gaza than a lot of people. I think they should get a good, fresh, beautiful piece of land, and we get some people to put up the money to build it and make it nice and make it habitable and enjoyable and make it a home.
They don't want to leave, though. Palestinians say they don't want to leave.
I don't know how they could want to stay. It's a demolition site. It's a pure demolition site. If we could find the right piece of land or numerous pieces of land and build them some really nice places with plenty of money in the area, that's for sure. I think that would be a lot better than going back to Gaza, which has had just decades and decades of death.
Where would those pieces of land be?
Well, they could be in Jordan, and they could be in Egypt, and they could be in other places. You could have more than two, more than one, but you could have more than two. And you'd have people living in a place that could be very beautiful and safe and nice. Gaza's been a disaster for decades.
Would the U.S. pay for that?
I don't think the UN would pay, but I think there's plenty of people that would in the area. They have a lot of money.
I wonder who made it a demolition site with whose weapons. I think what should be more concerning to people is that they're saying that the Gaza population is now 1.7 million people, meaning over 600,000 Palestinians in Gaza are currently unaccounted for. I think it's pretty wild that Donald Trump is in the simplest terms talking about mass ethnic transfer, which is ethnic cleansing. And there's not like a lot of pushback against it, which is expected, to be fair. Because when Joe Biden would say, Joe Biden wouldn't say like, oh, we got to move these Palestinians out of here. They got to go somewhere else. But like when he was defending Israel turning Gaza into, in Trump's words, a demolition site, they also didn't question that either. But hey, yeah, I think there isn't pushback because he's just stating in plain terms what our policy goals have always been without the doublespeak of the Democrats. Yeah, I genuinely believe that he's stupid enough to not understand that he's advocating for ethnic cleansing. No, I think he doesn't care. That's why someone said, what if they don't want to leave? A lot of Gazans don't want to leave. If you're wondering why Gazans don't want to leave the Gaza Strip, well, it's because the last time that they left their homes, they were never allowed to return. So for Palestinians, it's even that kind of thing is obviously a significant part of their history and their identity. their entire national identity revolves around being forcibly displaced from their homes. Anyway, Witkoff had a take on this after. White House National Security Advisor, when asked about Trump's proposal to clean out Gaza, I would push back on the characterization of cleaning out Gaza. I think President Trump is looking at this from a humanitarian standpoint. You have these people that are sitting with literally thousands of unexploded ordnance and piles of rubble. At some point, we have to look realistically. How do we rebuild Gaza? What does it look like? What's the timeline? I think a lot of people, we're looking at very unrealistic timelines. We're talking about 10, 15 years, not 5 years. And so that is what we have to work through. That's sort of what we'll work through. I don't necessarily know what that means, but Trump's Mideast envoy, Steve Witkoff, when the president talks about clearing it out, he talks about making it habitable. Witkoff also says they're in phase 2 of the deal. We're focused on ensuring that the phase 1 ends as it should, that all hostages who are part of that deal come home, including bodies. Meanwhile, during the phase 1 process, when there's supposed to be a so-called ceasefire, Israel is predictably, bombed, as far as I understand, certain parts of Gaza. Hold on. Trump was literally saying the other day that rebuilding over the land in Gaza had real potential. Yeah. They've been focused on the West Bank, which gets zero coverage. There's also that aspect of it too. Another thing is it's also about land ownership. If Palestinians leave Gaza somewhere else, they will have no stake in their own fates and will likely always be a lower class wherever they go. Yeah, they're in. There are already tens of millions of Palestinians that live in diaspora permanently, with no means of ever coming back, and even in certain instances visiting their families. You know what I mean? Their freedom to travel back to their ancestral homeland is permanently limited. If you're a Jewish person with no connection to that area whatsoever, and you grew up in any other part of the planet, you can go and live there, okay, with ease. But if you're Palestinian and your grandpa still lives in Gaza, you're going to have a very hard time. You're probably not going to be able to see your grandparents. Okay? Your freedom even to travel to the West Bank is restricted. When you're inside of the West Bank, your freedom of movement is restricted. How are they planning on moving 1.7 million Palestinians who refuse to leave? Will he just keep bombing? The displaced Palestinians will also be used as a justification to invade Jordan and Egypt under the excuse that the resistance is operating from there, so they're invading for security reasons. Yeah, there's also that. Also, Donald Trump signs an executive order withdrawing the United States from the UN Human Rights Council and UNRWA.
In light of numerous actions taken by a number of bodies of the United Nations, which exhibit a deep anti-American bias, we have an executive order.
You know what's crazy about this, by the way? Like liberals who say, well, guess what, pro-Palestinians, you deserve this for voting for Jill Stein. Number one, Jill Stein, no motion, okay? Even if all Jill Stein voters voted for Kamala Harris still would have lost. That's number one. Number two, you know which administration also pulled UNRWA funding after Israel lied and said UNRWA was involved in October 7? The Biden administration. He's just making it permanent. This is yet another glaringly obvious example of like the uniparty principles of American foreign policy. Okay? And not only is it uniparty, but what did I also tell you? It only becomes worse, right? It only becomes more right-wing. Oftentimes, the Democratic Party will not undermine the decisions of the previous administration, like with Donald Trump doing the Abraham Accords, and numerous other pro-Israel things that greatly destabilized the region and caused October 7, as I pointed out many times over in my coverage over the past 16 months. Biden's involvement before October 7 was not actually reversing any of the decisions that the Trump administration had made and simply continuing it. Then October 7 happens, and then Biden does a genocide. Okay? Biden oversees the genocide and complete ethnic cleansing, right? Attempts of the Palestinian population, making the entirety of the Gaza Strip uninhabitable so that they can inevitably justify mass population transfer. So Donald Trump is basically just moving it further to the right. And then the next administration, if it is a Democrat, if the Democrats ever win ever again, okay, will most likely not reverse those decisions again. That's the one thing that the Democratic Party gives a shit about. The one thing that the Democratic Party gives a shit about nowadays is just like protecting Israel. It's crazy. Anyway, let's watch what Trump's press conference looked like when he was signing a bunch of executive orders, including cutting funding to UNRWA.
Before the press came in, you signed a commission appointing Chris Wright.
Also, the United States government has officially flown undocumented migrants over to Guantanamo Bay for the first time ever, specifically for being undocumented migrants. Okay. And not because they're terrorists or whatever. Even then that, that is also not, that is also ridiculous.
Your next Secretary of Energy. We have another commission prepared for your signature.
Yeah. El Salvador has also mentioned that Nayib Bukele said that he would be open to using CCOT as a holdover facility for undocumented migrants away from the United States. It's like really, really horrifying shit. Okay. It is really, really, really horrible.
This is Doug Collins to be Secretary of the VA. Doug Collins of Georgia.
Two very good men. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Next up, in light of numerous actions taken by a number of bodies of the United Nations which exhibit a deep anti-American bias, we have an executive order prepared for your attention that would withdraw the United States from the UN Human Rights Council, would withdraw the United States from the UNRWA, which is a refugee organization, and would also review American involvement in UNESCO, which has also exhibited anti-American bias. More generally, the executive order calls for a review of American involvement and funding in the UN in light of the wilds that, as you've expressed previously.
Watching fascism in real time is fun, man. I wouldn't say fun. How does this lower the egg prices, guys? It's going to be shocking to... I have a shocking announcement. I don't think the egg prices are getting lower. Okay? I don't think any of these things that Donald Trump is doing is lowering the egg prices. I don't want to freak you guys out, but I just don't think that he's invested in that. Use liquid eggs, you fucking idiots. Come on, dude. Do you think that's the point? You think that's the argument that people are making? Do I have to describe it to you? Egg prices is just a standard for it's a thing that people point to. Of course not, but you get through. Dude, it's not about actually eating scrambled eggs, man. What are you talking about? It's just it's just a standout. It's just a holdover term for inflation, okay? The cost of goods. Remember how Donald Trump actually, ran on combating prices, and then prices got worse when he became president? It's a proxy. Total aside, but those are more expensive than eggs. New Waffle House announced it'd be adding a 50-cent surcharge to all eggs sold at its location due to the soaring egg prices caused by the bird flu. Yep. Who would have predicted that his campaign promises are all lies? I mean, yeah, it's the easiest thing to say. I said it a million times over. Obviously, he's not going to lower the price of freaking eggs.
Is deeply unfair to the United States.
So I've always felt that the UN has tremendous potential. It's not living up to that potential right now. It really isn't, hasn't for a long time. It has, there are great hopes for it, but it's not being well run, to be honest, and they're not doing the job. A lot of these conflicts that we're working on should be settled, or at least we should have some help in settling them. We never seem to get help. That should be the primary purpose of the UN, the United Nations. And again, it's got great potential, and based on the potential, we'll continue to go along with it, but they got to get their act together.
What would they need to do, sir, to get their act together?
Well, they got to be fair to countries that deserve fairness. They have some countries, as you know, that are outliers, that are very bad, and they're being almost preferred as countries to those that do their job and are doing a good job. And they have to really, they're going to end up losing, a lot of countries, they're going to end up losing their credibility like other organizations, and then they're going to be nothing. The potential of the United Nations, and not everybody agrees with me on this, the potential of the United Nations is fantastic if properly run. So we'll see what happens.
How much money are you willing to take away from them?
Well, we're taking away a little bit, but we're not looking to take away money. This is so important that we're really, as you know, the United Nations is largely funded by us. But, and it shouldn't be, it should be funded by everybody, but we're disproportionate, as we always seem to be. But it's something that if it ever lived up to the potential, right now it doesn't have that power.
Next, sir, this is a national security presidential memorandum that seeks to impose maximum pressure on the government of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Many of these provisions are similar to actions that your administration took during your first administration. The basic idea here is to have every department and agency, or many departments and agencies in your government attempt to sanction and control Iranian activities, particularly relating to the Iranian nuclear program and the Iranian export of terrorism through support of various proxy groups abroad. And the intent here is to give you all of the possible tools to, I'd say, engage with the Iranian government to ensure that going forward they are less of a malign actor on the world stage.
So this is one that I'm torn about. Everybody wants me to sign it. I'll do that. It's very tough on Iran. It's what we had before. We would have never had the problem. You would have never had October 7th. We would have never had the problem had the election gone a different way, which it should have. But this one, I think, more than made up for it. I think we're doing things, and it shows that more than made up for it, much more historic. The Iran situation, hopefully, I'm going to sign it, but hopefully we're not going to have to use it very much. We will see whether or not we can arrange or work out a deal with Iran, and everybody can live together, and maybe that's possible, and maybe it's not possible. So I'm signing this, and I'm unhappy to do it, but I really have not so much choice, because we have to be strong and firm, and I hope that it's not going to have to be used in any great measure at all. It'd be great if we could have a Middle East and maybe a world at total peace. Right now you don't have that. When I left, you had peace all over the world, and now you have the world is blowing up. As you know, Bibi is coming in to see me later. Others are coming in to see me. We'll see what we can do. But I'm signing this, and hopefully it will be a document which won't be very important, will hardly have to be used.
So what kind of deal would you be prepared to
Well,
make
we're going to
with Iran?
see. I mean, we're going to see. They cannot have a nuclear weapon. With me, it's very simple. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Do you support
We don't want to be tough on Iran. We don't want to be tough on anybody, but they just can't have a nuclear weapon.
Do you
Mr.
support
President, are you going to
retaliatory-
engage in conversations with your counterpart in Iran?
I would.
Do you want to block the sale of Iranian oil to other nations?
Well, we have the right to do that, and that's what I did before. And they had no money. They wouldn't have had the money for Hamas or Hezbollah or anybody else. It could have been solved. This thing, if things went the way they should have, this would have
Do you
been.
think Iran is to developing a nuclear weapon?
I think they're close. I think they're close. They're too close. But again, you could go back 4 years. I would have said they would have had it during this intervening period. But they're pretty close, Peter.
And why say that you're unhappy to sign it if it's Iran and their proxies who have threatened to retaliate against you and your team by killing you guys for taking out Soleimani?
Well, they haven't done that, and that would be a terrible thing for them to do. Not because of me. If they did that, they would be obliterated. That would be the end. I've left instructions. If they do it, they get obliterated. There won't be anything left. And they shouldn't be able to do it. And Biden should have said that, but he never did. I don't know why. Lack of intelligence, perhaps. But he never said it. If that happens to a leader, or close to a leader, frankly, if you had other people involved also, you would call for total obliteration of a state that did it. That would include Iran. So I'm signing this, and it's a very powerful document, but hopefully we're not going to have to use it.
Mr. President, if the Prime Minister today were to ask your help in striking at Iran's nuclear facilities to prevent the kind of progress towards a nuclear weapon, would you give him the green light? Would it, either to do it himself or for the U.S. to participate with him?
I don't know that that's what he's going to be asking for. I have no idea that it is. You're telling me. We're going to have a pretty long meeting. We're going to be discussing a lot of things, not only that, but a lot of things. And I'll let you know if the time comes to let you know. But right now, that's not something that I can discuss.
Mr. President, when you said if they do it, they get obliterated. Just to be clear, you're talking about if Iran made an attempt on your life.
Yeah, that would be called total obliteration. And I can't imagine they do that. It should have been stated by Biden, but he didn't state it because he had no clue, as you know, as
Mr.
everybody
President,
knows.
what is your vision actually for the relationship
Do you have
with
anything
Iran?
else?
No, that's all we have.
My vision for
For a
what?
relationship with Iran, and what do you? what
I'd
do you
love to
think
have a
Israel
good
would-
relationship with everybody. They can't have a nuclear weapon. That was the only thing that was very important. They can't have a nuclear weapon. Beyond that, it would be very tough if they insist on doing that. They have some of their leadership, I can tell you right now, and maybe you know it, maybe you don't, but there are many people at the top ranks of Iran that do not want to have a nuclear weapon just for that very reason.
Mr. President, what's your reaction to China's retaliatory tariffs?
It's fine. It's fine. We're going to do very well against China and against everybody else. Right now, they've taken advantage of the Biden administration like I've never seen. I've never seen. The deficit with China is about $1 trillion. Think of it, $1 trillion. They're using our money to build their military. And Biden let that happen. We're taking a lot of fires here. We came back. This is like a different place. The good news is we're doing very well. We're doing well with countries that nobody expected we'd do well with. We are respected again as a nation, maybe at a level that people haven't seen for many, many decades. But when I left, we didn't have any wars. I defeated ISIS, 100% of the ISIS caliphate, and now The world seems to be ready to blow up, but we'll see if we can stop it.
Mr. President, update about when you'll speak to President
About
Xi.
any kind of
Say
deal?
it.
Have you reached out to the Iranians about any kind of deal to start those
I would
discussions?
reach out. I mean, I have nothing. I say I'm one that doesn't care whether I reach out or they reach out. A lot of people say, "Let them reach out, sir." To me, it doesn't matter. It's just talk. But I want to see everybody do well. I want to see great countries, and I want to see peace in the Middle East and elsewhere. We're also working very hard with respect to Russia, Ukraine. That's a bloodbath. It's a total bloodbath. What's going on there is incredible. What's going on with the soldiers, young soldiers being killed by the thousands. I mean, literally by the thousands. And we want to see if we can get that stopped. And I think we've had some very good talks.
Any update on when you would speak to President Xi, sir? Any update on when you would speak to President Xi?
No, we'll speak to him at the appropriate time. I'm in no rush.
I might be wrong about this, but I think that much of Trump's actions are what a hegemon does when they know they're losing grip on power. In the past, the U.S. would rely on international organizations like the UN to get what they want. Now they're using direct power to keep control. Yes. 100%. This spells the end of American empire. That's precisely what's happening. And I think we're just going to get more violent as time progresses. So more war, yes. More war. Liberals can't message to save their lives or ours. I know. I mean, they're definitely nice JCP shirt, King. Oh, you could tell. Yeah, I'm wearing underneath this. This is the other sweatshirt that I got. It was like $10. Brand called Deluxe. I have no idea what it is, but it looked cool. It had a cool fit. Have you reacted to Giannis Varoufakis? Would love to see him on again to talk about this. Yeah, I'm down to have Giannis on when I'm back in America. For sure. How do you deal with like the sickening feeling that accompanies all this, especially with Palestine? Chatters, I've told you this already. Being a leftist is being on the right side of history, being correct but too early, and also constantly getting yelled at, constantly engaging in, constantly talking about things that are directly at odds with the powers that with the pre-existing hierarchy. You're gonna lose a lot. Okay, that's it. You're gonna lose a lot, so get ready for it. But just, as long as you know that your moral compass is correct and you don't lose yourself to the whims of I don't know, wanting a tiny bit of victory in the short term, you just have to keep putting your best foot forward with the knowledge that you're doing the right thing and you're doing right by others. That's it. Like Jank and Anna lol. I mean, I've talked about this a lot. Reactionary thought is alluring. So when you start training your brain to believe things from a reactionary point of view, you start basically it's the opposite of muscle training, right? If you don't actually constantly work out, you're inevitably going to become a weaker person. Your muscles are going to go away and then maybe even be replaced with fat. Okay? That's how I feel about critical thinking. If you engage in critical thinking and you constantly do it and you apply it all the time, okay, you cause that muscle not to atrophy. Reactionary thinking, on the other hand, is atrophy, and it slowly creeps in. It slowly creeps in, and it can be on a number of different issues. It can be on Israel, Palestine. And as long as it's left unaddressed, I think for many people, they still can fancy themselves to be progressive, except for Palestine, and go along with it for years and years. But obviously, the events that have unfolded over the past 16 months have caused those contradictions to be in the forefront, which are causing people's brains to collapse. For others, it can be about crime, right? You see crime taking place in front of you and you just kind of lose it, where you go, oh my God, this is like a genuinely emotionally traumatic moment. Why is nobody doing something to address this? And then that's when reactionary thinking kicks in. Reactionary thinking, right-wing thinking, is illogical. It's emotional. Okay? You don't care about facts. You don't care about empirical evidence. You care about your own personal feelings and your own broad reception. Okay? So when something happens to you that is genuinely traumatic, it's understandable that something in your brain shifts, where you no longer think about this issue through these systemic solutions, but simply want to deal with it head on, immediately, instantly, take matters into your own hands, or the only systematic solution to it is through a mechanism of enforcement that is more rigid than the past. Okay? Reactionary thinking is a puzzle piece that fits in every argument. Okay? In every single argument. You always go, oh, I know the reason for this. It's DEI. You know what I mean? I know the reason for this. It's black people. I know the reason for this. It's women. I know why something is happening that is bad. It's because insert whatever puzzle piece that you want to put in there, that reactionaries put in there, their daily flavor. Okay? It's illegals. And the interesting part about that is that it's a captivating way of thinking. It's comforting. It's comforting to feel like you have the answer. It's comforting to feel like you are aware of all of the issues and that their solutions almost always are just someone else. And especially when that someone else is marginalized, then it's much easier to tackle that problem. That's it.
Do you,
Not that proper.
do you think that conversation can lend itself to the type of freeze that it meant for the tariffs for Canada and
Well, we'll
Mexico?
see.
There are a lot of people who act like they're doing the world a favor by publicly espousing progressive politics, but the moment it affects them personally, they go full-blown reactionary because they now actually address their own biases. They just said everything you wanted them to say. Yeah, and I think that is actually part of the reason why it's pure projection when like Anna or other people will say like Hasan is totally captive. He's a slave to his audience. Am I radicalizing my audience because I'm a, socialist who loves undermining American empire by doing acts of terror, and I'm actually radicalizing my audience? Or is it actually that I'm a captive to my audience? I'm a slave to my audience, and I have to portray my point of view? Maybe it's neither of those things. Maybe these are genuine opinions that I hold, and I'm uncompromising and routinely yell at my own audience all the time when they say some silly shit. It makes no sense, but it doesn't have to make sense.